Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger. Today we're chatting with Joe Pergolesi and Matt Perkins of Website Closers. And so I learned a lot of stuff on this episode. I've been interested in buying and selling businesses. One day I'd love to be able to buy businesses. I think that'd be super cool. But, as I know a lot of folks listen to this are Amazon sellers. And I always was of the opinion, or not really opinion, I always thought that having an arbitrage business made it so it wasn't really sellable. Well, that is not true, guys. These guys, Website Closers, have been able to help sellers of Amazon arbitrage businesses, retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, sell their business. Very cool. Didn't know that. But you're going to learn how in this episode. You're going to learn how to prepare for an exit. You're going to learn what multiples are, what you could actually sell your business for. I just learned a ton. I took a whole bunch of notes for this episode, but and guarantee you're going to learn something too. But yeah, think about being able to sell your business, make a bunch of cash all at once, and then go build something else. Very cool. You're going to love this episode. Here it is. Matt, Joe, welcome to Streams of Income, guys. And my honor to have you. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate being here.
So this is
Thanks, Ryan.
Unique. I don't normally have 2 people on at the same time, which is cool. So we'll get 2 different perspectives about what you guys do and how Website Closers can help folks. But I guess, Joe, you reached out to me first. I'll let you go first. I love hearing people's stories. It's always really fascinating because I looked at your LinkedIn resume. You got a ton of experience. And so just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into what you're doing, some of your business journey.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. So my business journey started when I was around 19 or 20 years old. I was working in, of all things, a skateboard shop in New York City. This is dating back to 1993. And I had this, I have this gene in me, which says, how can you do something better? Mm-hmm. And I can't shut it off. It's always on. I'm always thinking about ideas like, oh, if I was there, I would do this, or, oh, why are they doing that? So, I'm an imaginative type. I'm a questioning type. And I basically turned to the business owner at the time and I handed him a piece of paper, which you could really call a business plan. And I said, hey, his name is Arthur. Hey, Arthur, I think I have some ideas on how you can grow your business. And he looked at the piece of paper and he glanced it over and then he said, oh, okay, this looks great. And he handed it back to me and that was the end of it. Well, wow. Fast forward a year later, I ended up opening up my own skateboard and snowboard shop.
That's awesome. Right next to Arthur.
Yeah. Well, as the story goes, Arthur went out of business and I ended up buying his inventory.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Arthur didn't listen to your business plan.
Arthur didn't listen to my business plan. And I got some sage advice along the way, which was ignorance is a blessing to the youth. And I still remember that to this day, because if I knew what I was getting into ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And I was following a vision. I'm that kind of stage 1 entrepreneur that is passionate, you could call an artist. And So yeah, I was fortunate enough to have my very first exit when I was around 25 years old. I got bought by a large chain. And then, some twists and turns. I followed some topics, some things I was really interested in, education. I worked at a marketing agency. And then again, the same thing happened. I was working on a farm. The farmer said he wanted to rebuild a wood-fired oven. And at the end of the meeting, I handed him a sketch. I said, hey, I think this is how we could rebuild the oven. And he turned to me, this time he turned to me and he said, okay, build it. And I had never built one before. So I dove right in, and I ended up building a franchise off of wood-fired ovens that I grew to 400 franchisees across 5 countries. And I was fortunate enough that I ended up working with Steve Jobs and his executive team on a project building an outdoor kitchen or outdoor kitchens for their Cupertino campus.
Oh, wow.
And I was also working with people who were taking second mortgages on their homes. So I got a chance to really work with, hundreds, if not over 1,000 entrepreneurs start, scale, or even help them sell their businesses.
Wow.
And fast forward to where I am today, I've had 3 exits. I love this journey. I relate really to the spirit of entrepreneurship. It's a way of life. I think it's the greatest path of self-development there really is. So, yeah, that's my story is summarized as best as I can. And
I definitely get your story. I want to ask a follow-up question though. With the eggs, is it more fun for you to like? Could you imagine yourself still being a part of that wood-fired oven business, or would you have been bored a long time ago?
I didn't eat a slice of pizza for a year after I sold that wood-fired pizza.
Okay.
I was done with it, and I was fortunate enough to really feel the inevitability and the finality of it.
Wow. I wonder how many people go beyond it, that are still building, or maybe not even they're done building. They're just trying to maintain it, and they should have sold it a long time ago. Do you run across business owners like that, man, you should have sold this thing 3 years ago or 10 years ago. You're clearly thinking about other stuff, and that would have been a better move.
Yeah, absolutely. I say that the 3 reasons why people sell their business is they've reached their number, they're burnt out, or they have other projects that they want to work on. So the burnout is real. Yeah, we uncover that a lot, and people sometimes feel, a little embarrassed to share that, but it's real, and it's our job today as brokers to help shield that narrative, because you don't want to portray necessarily that somebody's desperate during a transaction.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, entrepreneurs, we're used to hey, what's the new next thing? I mean, my business looks nothing like it did when I first started. I know you guys are just meeting me, but I used to sell furniture on Craigslist, and I can't imagine doing that anymore. Now, I wasn't building a business that was sellable, but we pivot so much, and we or just never. It's hard to find somebody nowadays that's doing the same thing that for 10 or 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's 2 things. One is I think the entrepreneurial mind can always recognize open doors.
Yes,
and it's just embedded. You're always thinking about, how do I make something better, or what?
Yes,
how do I grow? And that sometimes parlays into, how do I grow into new experiences? And I think just overall, I think we're now a generation of no longer one career. We have more choice. We have more options.
That's right.
There's more freedom there. So shiny object syndrome. It exists. It's strong.
Oh my gosh, this has already been awesome. We could end it now and be good. But Matt, I want to hear from you and how your story, and then I definitely want to just talk about things like, when should somebody talk to a broker? Why use a broker? And even maybe from the side of buying businesses, because I'm actually on your guys' email list. I get emails from you with different opportunities, because I would love someday to be buying businesses. But Matt, tell us about you and your story.
Yeah, I mean, my story is so different from Joe's. I grew up in the middle class household. I had a father with 2 PhDs. I have a mother with a master's degree. I mean, it's education. My grandmother was an educator. And so I went to college. I don't know if there was another option.
Sure.
So I went through that path. I got an accounting degree and went to work for one of the big four accounting firms. And I got married before I graduated from college, and I had a kid not too long after I started my career.
Oh my goodness.
That's not really conducive to big four accounting.
Right.
Some people can do it. It wasn't quite right for me. And,
Yeah.
there were really aspects of it that I struggled with. I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went on the hunt. I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And I knew some people from when I was growing up. They had a small consulting firm, risk management, insurance consulting, and great people. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll give it a try. And it was good for a couple of years. And actually, I was at a conference, and somebody came up to me, and I was talking with somebody about all of these different things that our firm could do, and how we had people that spoke all these different languages, and we had people that spoke German, Italian. We had somebody that spoke French, Spanish, German. All of these languages, and there was a recruiter that was there and looked at me and said, "Well, do you speak Spanish?" I said, "Yeah, I actually do." She said, "Oh, are you looking for a job?" I said, "No." And like a great salesperson, she said, "Well, I have this opportunity." I heard free lunch. And so I said, "Sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and have a chat." And it turned out to be a great opportunity. I mean, anybody that looks me up on LinkedIn would find I ended up working for Sherwin-Williams.
Okay.
Fortune 500, phenomenal company. And had the opportunity to travel the globe with them.
Oh, fun! Oh, you're married. Wait, you're married and have a kid at the point, right? So did they go with you?
Yeah. By this time, I had two kids.
Whoa.
But I was still based in Northeast Ohio.
Okay.
But I traveled. I was traveling, 1 to 2 weeks out of the month.
Wow.
All over Latin America. A number of different places in Mexico. I went to Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, a couple different places in Brazil. I ended up making it to the UK. I went over to China. I mean, I went all over the place, and it was great. Absolutely loved it. But I remember sitting down with my dad, and my dad, like I said, he had a couple of PhDs. Well, they were in marriage and family therapy and psychology.
Okay.
So you can imagine what my upbringing was like.
Right.
But I'm sitting down with him, and I'm thinking about, well, you've been doing this for like 30 years. And I'm thinking about all of the people that he's worked with and the lives that he's touched.
Yeah.
And I look at him, and at this point in my career, I was working in the Global Finishes division group, actually Global Finishes group of Sherwin-Williams, as a pricing manager, the global pricing manager. And I looked at him and I said, you sit there and you talk with people, you save marriages, you change generations of people. I put price on paint, and I'm like, man, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yeah.
So I went kind of on, I continued down the path looking for something else. I'm like, I got to get closer to family. I got to free up some of my time. And eventually it was, this opportunity to work with Website Closers came up. Wow. And I saw this opportunity to work with people that have put in all of this time, all of this effort and energy into making something, and to be able to help them to have a life-changing event, really, really spoke to me after having put price on paint. Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's how I ended up coming to where I am. And it works, to your point about buying businesses or selling businesses, it works on both sides. You have this idea of, there's something out there. There's the right thing. I don't know what it is yet, but there's the right thing that's out there. I might be able to buy that and make it something else.
Yeah.
You've got a vision, you've got a dream. And I feel like I can be a part of that for you and with you.
So cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. That's an awesome story too. You guys are awesome. I love it. Just your background's so fun and so different. But you're both at the same place. Tell us what Website Closers is for those that have never heard of it before.
Yeah. Joe, do you want to go ahead and hit that one?
Yeah, sure. So we're a brokerage, very much like the real estate brokerage, And if you would just imagine a real estate brokerage has properties that they list and help sellers or buyers, for that matter, we're the same. We help people who want to sell their business and people who want to buy a business. And brokerages, this particular brokerage has been around for well over a decade. Wow. And we're the largest in, let's say, the Main Street to mid-market. And what that really looks like in terms of dollars and cents is, let's say, $500,000 up to about 40, 50 million. We're the largest in the world in doing transactions. So we've done over $1 billion in transactions. Wow. We focus a lot on e-commerce. We touch every aspect of business, whether it's SaaS, tech, consumer goods, Amazon businesses, luxury goods, learning products, affiliate products, home goods, on and on and on. So there's a lot to know in our brains, a lot of different industries to track, a lot of financials, a lot of strategies, better understanding what the trends are in business, what's hot, what's not, and that I think could be really valuable to people that are listening. What are the best opportunities right now? What are the evergreen products that, despite some downward pressure, you might be able to find a good opportunity, whether you're starting a business or buying it from a brokerage. So, and what we typically do is we'll work with a buyer. We'll send them listings. We'll dissect the business, help them better understand the business. We'll be honest with them if we think it's a good business for them. So some of this is we do read into the personalities of our buyers and to better understand their needs and goals. And on the seller side, we'll work with them for months before we take them to market, cleaning up the business, packaging it in terms of buyer speak. So there's seller speak and buyers speak, or languages. And so we'll work with a seller preparing their business hand in hand, everything from inception of, hey, I want to sell my business, all the way to close. We hold their hand. And that's on both sides, buy side and sell side, as we call it in the brokerage
That's
world.
cool.
Anything you would, yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
With the broker, like I understand real estate a little bit more than I do buying and selling businesses. But typically, like if I'm selling my house, that you wouldn't, or if you wouldn't use this necessarily. There's two brokers in a transaction. Is that the same thing with you guys, or do you with the business broker? Is there a buying broker and a selling broker or is it the same person that's in both?
Great question. Yeah, in our brokerage, it could be both. So we can represent buyer and seller, or one or the other. So yeah, I mean, we really have, we're challenged every day in a good way to have a lot of integrity, to be authentic, and to be diplomatic, especially when we're running both buy side and sell side.
Interesting. How does that work? Yeah. Like, let's say Matt's got a deal and I'm interested in buying it, and he's representing the seller and I'm a buyer. Do I want to talk to Matt, or do I want to talk to you, Joe, and you guys are like battling out against each other?
Well, the way that I usually put it is, you want to be able to work with somebody that you work well with. Yeah. Right. If you find a good broker that, those are kind of things that you can work past. Okay. At the end of the day, right, it's always in the broker's best interest to make sure that there's a deal that happens, first of all. Yeah. Right. Yeah. First of all, there's no benefit to us if there isn't a deal that happens. But at the same time, the one call that we don't want to get is the call that is 3 or 6 months after the transaction, and somebody's just not happy.
Wow.
Because that hurts us. Right?
Yeah, like they're happy, like with is the seller that, or the buyer that bought it, like I shouldn't have bought this business, or what's an example? Like, I mean, after that, it's kind of too late, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if we've paired somebody up with the wrong business, or if the buyers and sellers, they need to be able to work together. because there's always going to be a transition period.
That's true. Yeah. This is not like a house. I'm not like, if I'm selling my house, I'm not going to transition them into it. Oh, here's the bedroom, and we're going to live with you for a couple months until you get used to the place.
Yeah, let me show you how you need to wiggle the handle so you can unlock the door. No, those things don't happen.
But in the business, they do. That's right.
Yeah, they have to be able to work together, and we always want them to be successful. Yeah. We have a number of businesses that we've actually listed 3, 4, or more times, and the reason is because there's somebody that had the initial vision and they created this awesome business. They came to us and we helped them sell the business. Yeah. And then whoever bought the business, they grew the business. They had this vision. They had this idea of a direction to go with it, and it took off. And they turn around and they sell the business for double what they bought it for. I mean, those are the types of things that we love to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll come back to us. That's what we want. We're reputation based. A good broker understands that his reputation is everything, because in this business, it's about trust. People come to us, and depending on where they're coming from, like you just did in the introduction, right? Like you want to know, does this person have credibility? Can I lean in? Can I actually absorb their advice? Where are they coming from? And a lot of times, even though it might not seem that way, these transactions are very emotional. And you think that things are so cut and dry, or very professional. Listen, I could tell you that the exit process for just about everybody is this combination of being really polished and also very scrappy. So if you would imagine you started your business, you're overwhelmed, you're trying to build it up, and that kind of passion and, again, scrappiness does resurface towards the very end of an exit, and having someone there to help you part and parcel what's really happening and translate. I like to say we're midwives of businesses. We're transition experts, so to speak. So
that's good. Wow. When should somebody start talking to a broker?
Yeah, I actually, that's a great question. Joe, if you don't mind.
Please.
So when I was working for that small consulting firm, I was at a continuing education conference, and I sat through this presentation by a guy that did middle market and upper middle market transactions as a broker. Great guy. But I remember him saying and asking the audience, okay, when is the right time to begin preparing for your exit? And, you get a couple of answers and not really sure. He said, the right time to prepare your exit is as you are getting in. At the very, very beginning is the right time. And he said, when's the second best time? Yeah.
Now, right?
Right now. Yeah. Right. If you haven't done it yet, and it doesn't mean that you have to plan, hey, I'm going to sell this in 5 years.
Sure.
It's hey, what is it that I want to get? To Joe's point, maybe you need to understand when you hit your number, understand, hey, when I get sick of this, or hey, if I start to get distracted, and understand what all of these little pivot points are, and be able to identify, okay, well, what is it that I'm trying to do here? What are my goals? What are my objectives? And to be able to work from that standpoint. So, Joe and I work with people from, beginning to end, wherever that process is, wherever they are in the process. And as soon as you can start talking and thinking about it, it informs your decisions. Yeah. It really, really does.
With, okay, so you guys obviously know I have a lot of Amazon sellers in my community, but, there's a good number of them that are just doing retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. And I understand probably, so I know that that's probably not quite as sellable as a private label brand. Is that right?
So I would say it's still sellable.
Okay.
Right. The question is for how much?
Yeah. Well, let's go over it, because I want to think, because like I don't talk to a lot of Amazon sellers, because because I don't have a private label community like some of these guys you probably talk to, but I want to kind of instill the seed in some of the people listening, like, "Ooh, I could actually sell my business. That sounds really cool. What do I need to do to get it in a position that's sellable?" Because I know some people come into a business thinking, "I'm going to sell it in 5 or 10 years." A lot of my students are like, "I just want to make a few $100 extra a month. Oh, this is working. This is working now. I can quit my job. Holy cow, I just quit my job. What can it be?" Selling the business is not always something that I think a lot of them think about. So I love that we're talking, because this is going to ignite something in one of them thinking, "Oh, I can actually sell this thing. What do I need to do now to start turning it into something that is sellable?" So is that something, can we like kind of break that down, like numbers, or, just how to transition their business? What do they need to start doing? Obviously talk to you is the answer, but like, just some things that for them to start thinking about now to get ready for that exit, or even maybe they're not going to sell it, but at least it's better to have it be ready to sell and decide not to, than it to be like, "Oh, I'd love to be out of this thing," and you didn't do the work to get it there.
Joe, do you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think, preparing your business, one of the key things, it's interesting that you passed it off to me because Matt's really good with the numbers, is really making sure that from day one, you're keeping proper track of your financials. You don't have things mixed into different accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're growing your business, the financial piece is so critical because it gets the most examination of any buyer. And you want to properly be conveying to any buyer what it is that they're looking at. In other words, what are your cost of goods? Mm-hmm. Where's your cell phone bill in all of this? How much are you paying yourself? Where's your gas?
Mm-hmm.
What are the real costs, fixed expenses or flexible expenses? Mm-hmm. What's your cost of goods? Matt, what does Amy call that spreadsheet that we did for her?
The unit economics. Yeah.
What are your unit economics per item? Even if you're doing the arbitrage,
okay,
what does that unit cost you? The financials are the first big thing to really start paying attention to.
Okay.
And then the second is the story of the business, the strategy. Okay, well, how are we going to best position your business? Is it by review, for your Amazon sellers? Is it by your 5-star reviews? Is it by how many hours a week you're working?
Okay.
Is it about the trends of that particular market segment?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you start to roll up your sleeves and do the things that actually take time. And the sooner you get started on them, the less of a rush you're going to feel, and the easier it's going to be on your own workload. I mean, we carry a lot of the workload. We carry, call it 75, 80% of the workload to get your business sold. But we don't want to do is rush that 20% of what needs to get done in 3 weeks.
Right.
Please don't do that, though.
Yeah. And I would just... I would add 2 additional pieces, like on the financial side. Joe mentioned what are your personal expenses that you're taking out of the business? Mm-hmm. One thing that's going to be very important is going to be the tax returns. When if somebody's going to borrow money to buy your business, you absolutely need to have clean tax returns. You can have your financials, and you could have in your, say, office supplies line, you could have whatever it is that you bought for your family. You bought your kids Christmas presents, and that kind of flows through the office expenses line or whatever. When you put that on a tax return, and then the bank comes back and they look at it, they'll accept some add backs, is what we call them, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a car and you're expensing that, right? If you have a couple of different things, they'll add those back, and they'll say, okay, yeah, we understand that, and we'll consider that. What they won't consider is when you tell them, well, I bought some gifts for my kids and classified them as office expenses. Okay. So just keep that in mind. We have that situation right now where we had a seller who he does things with GPS. And so he he bought a car and he wanted to make sure that it worked with the car.
Sure.
So the car somehow made its way into the financial statements somehow. Well, banks aren't going to like that. Okay.
Why not? He had to test his product. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had to test the products. So that's one thing is the tax returns, especially because the SBA has the 7A loans that people use to buy businesses. And if you don't have those clean tax returns, the SBA is not going to be willing to lend on that.
Got it. And so therefore you lose a potential buyer because you don't have
because they can't get funding. You broaden your pool when you have good, clean tax returns and you have good, clean financials. So the second piece that I would add to the next piece would be kind of the operations of it, right? Okay. You have your process. You know how you do things. Can you document that? Right? Think about the transition to the buyer before it happens, right? Make sure that you're able to clearly explain, articulate everything it is that you do that allows you to make your 6 figures or whatever it is that you're doing, however much you've grown your business. How do you do that? Because that's going to be a key element of the transition.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like if I'm doing arbitrage and I'm the one out doing the work, well, that's not as sellable as if I have shoppers that are doing it for me. I have a warehouse, I have a team. Talk about for a second, like multiples, like what you typically see in like an arbitrage business versus, because you mentioned you can sell an arbitrage business, but for how much? So I would assume it's going to be lower than a private label brand. But is it okay to give some type of just broad numbers of like, if you have this much in sales, and if it's an arbitrage business, you're probably looking at this kind of multiple, at least in some type of range. And then if it's a private label brand, this number of sales, some type of range.
Yeah, sure. I wondered if Joe was going to jump in there.
No, go for it.
Yeah. So with Website Closers, we have a couple of different brokerages. We have some sister brokerages that deal with the lower end, smaller businesses, I guess is the way I would put it.
Right.
Businesses that are making anywhere from maybe, $25,000, $50,000 a year up to maybe a couple $100,000.
That's $25,000, $25,000 to $50,000. That's like their profit.
Yeah, the net income or seller discretionary earnings. There's a good number there for you, or a good key. We call it SDE.
Okay.
Right. It's not necessarily your net income. It's your net income plus any interest expense. You add that back. Plus what you take out as a salary. We add that back. It's whatever the benefit is of the business to you. That's your seller discretionary earnings, or SDE. Okay. And we'll take that, and that's what the multiples are based off of. If it's a smaller business, we see multiples that are kind of sitting around maybe 2 to 3. Sometimes you'll get up to the 4 area. Okay. Obviously, with private label or brands, those are obviously a little bit on the higher end of that. As you start to creep into the 6-figure bottom line, say 150,
it's like a 6-figure SDE.
Yeah, 6-figure SDE. At that point, you're starting to look more around with an arbitrage business. Probably somewhere around 3 is kind of where you would be looking. Yeah, plus or minus, right? 2.5 to 3.5 is probably where you're going to end up listing. And
so if I have $1 million in SDE, you're looking at maybe around $3 million sale.
Yeah. Maybe even a little bit more, depending on how attractive the business is, right? If you have employees that are going out and doing this and you don't have to do anything, that's even more attractive, right? If you're only spending, say, 10 hours a week, right? But if you're the one running it, that's gonna kind of tamper the multiple a little bit as well.
Okay. All right. So if I'm a business owner and I'm doing 500K, sorry, just real quick, just want to make sure, like a lot of our folks, if they're doing between 500 and $1 million in, gross revenue, let's say that they're, on the lower, they would be on the lower end because their SDE would be a lot lower. They may be looking at a 2 multiple.
I don't think I wouldn't list that low. I mean, maybe that's what it sells at. but I definitely list it. I don't like listing anything lower than a 3. So
Okay. Okay.
actually, I don't like listing anything lower than 3.5. But
Okay.
We would probably put it at that 3.5 range.
And it might only sell for a 2 potentially if it's a smaller one.
Yeah, I mean, there's always negotiation,
Sure.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. I want to let you go ahead and jump in too.
Well, yeah, no, it's when we talk about valuations and price, what goes hand in hand, and it's a bit of a rabbit hole, but we'll try and be succinct as possible, is the word terms. So if your list price, let's just say, is $1 million, there's a way potentially for you to get upwards of 1.2 million, or even on the extreme end, maybe even 1.5 million through the terms of the deal. And some of that looks like when you do a transaction, you're looking at 4, as we call them, levers. Okay, there's cash at close. Then there's a seller note where it's like seller financing. The seller will hold a note against the buyer and make interest. The interest is good. It could be between 5 and aggressively 10%. And then the third lever is something called earnout, where the money is not guaranteed like a seller note is. However, an earnout can earn you even more money, okay, than perhaps the seller note could, because it's pegged to the revenue. So if the business outperforms, the seller is going to get compensated for that. And the fourth lever is equity. And if a buyer plans to sell the business after they buy it, then if someone's holding equity, their 20% on day of close could have looked like worth $200,000.
Wow.
But on the second exit, their 20%, now that the business has grown 10x, could now be worth $2 million.
Wow.
So it's critical that any of your listeners or any sellers understand that, at least from my perspective, I'm more of the strategist in this dynamic duo that between Matt and I. In my mind, I don't pay I don't pay a lot of credence to the asking price or purchase price. Of course, it needs to be valid, needs to be legitimate, it needs to be fair. I'm very much focused on the terms. I believe the deal happens in the terms, especially if there's chemistry between the buyer and seller. The terms will always end up being more favorable. There's more give and take that could happen.
Yeah. You guys just said something that was brilliant, like that I didn't think about before. I typically I have like about this much knowledge of buying businesses. I read a book about it, and I'm on some email lists. But I always had the opinion, I guess it sounds like it's improper knowledge, that with using a broker, that there's not a whole lot of flexibility or creativity in the deals. But what you just said totally debunked that, because I figured like you guys obviously get paid when the deal happens, but if there's earnouts and seller financing, then that lowers your potential of your commission. So how does that work really well with you guys of being able to still, earn a decent commission on a sale that is creative like that?
Well, I'll tell you that there's truth to what you said, but it's broker dependent. Okay. Right? Like one in the hand is two in the bush versus someone rushing to get a deal done without everybody's best interest. We've done enough deals to know that the real win is the reputation, not the close.
I mean, that kind of brings it back around, right, to what we were talking about earlier, right? And those two of those elements that Joe mentioned, or actually three of them, you need to have a lot of trust from a seller standpoint in the buyer.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to extend financing to the buyer, even if it's $150,000, you're like, I really want that $150,000 to get paid, right? So you have to trust them, and especially in an earnout and in an equity situation. I mean, and it's not uncommon for us to do that. Joe and I not, the hour before this call, we've been talking about a deal that we have that's sitting out there, and we're talking about, okay, well, where do we need to be in that whole spectrum of how much of this needs to be cash? How much can we get funneled into a seller note? How much of this is going to be sitting in equity because the seller wants 20 to 30%?
Yeah.
And, how much of this is going to sit in earnout, and how amenable is the seller to earnout? We know he wants to be involved. He wants to continue as the CEO of his company.
Okay.
But, so he's going to have a good relationship.
Yeah. Without getting too deep in the weeds, can you guys still get paid on that deal? Can you get some equity? Can you get part of the interest so that you're not, you're working hard to make this happen, so you deserve your fair compensation?
Well, our focus is to be able to get as much cash as possible for our client.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we've ever run into a situation where the cash isn't sufficient to be able to pay out our commission.
That's good. Okay.
And if that does become an issue, I mean, we obviously want to make sure that our client is happy. We're not going to let them walk away from the table with nothing.
Right.
Or even something, de minimis. We want to make sure that they have a nice payday, right?
Yeah.
Have that nice life-changing event.
Yeah.
And so we'll do what we have to make sure that happens.
That's cool. Is this like right now is an amazing time to sell a house? Like right now, we live in North Texas. We had a neighbor that sold it before it even hit the MLS. Is this also a good time? Like, is there times that are better than another for buying and selling a business?
It's a great question.
Just curious. I know that might be a random off the wall question, but I was just thinking about, like, in relation to houses, is there any relation to businesses? Like, now is not the time to buy, or now is the time to sell your business. It's like this, it's hot right now or something.
I'll give you I'll answer the question. I'll give you even a little bit more context for your listeners. So when you're tracking your financials and you're tracking your trends and your seasonality, if you're really paying attention to those numbers, and you don't have to be good at numbers to start a business. I wasn't good at all when I first started. My mom was my bookkeeper.
Yeah, you just get a guy like Matt to partner up with and you're set.
I hit the gold mine with Matt, but that's a different conversation, maybe for a different. That's my savior in a lot of ways.
Well,
let's make sure that everybody knows.
Let's make sure everybody knows, Joe. My wife does our books, so and she was an interior designer. Okay, so let's just make sure that we've got everything straight.
So where I'm going with this, though, is when you develop your indicators, your buttons, your dials, your levers within your business as you're growing. And again, you don't have to know this from day one. You're going to have to spend some time just thinking about your business and making sure that you're okay with being an amateur. Like, if some of your listeners are first-time entrepreneurs, like, it's fine. You're not good at developing a P&L. That's okay. Like, you will learn and you'll understand the value when you're learning. And in turn, what that's going to help you see is your trends, and you're going to know, okay, I'm leveling off. Why am I leveling off? Okay, I know what I need to do to get my business into, let's say, the sell zone. The sell zone is either flat, or even better, if you are growing by 5 or 10%. That's all you need to really be. You don't need to be growing by leaps and bounds, but you want to see some growth. And that is a good indicator. Flat is okay. Declining is always tough. You have to have something really unique and special for someone to buy, as we call it, just a distressed business.
Yeah. And if you don't have somebody that's unique and looking at the business, or you don't have anything terribly unique and it's in decline, you can still sell it. It's just what's the price you're going to get, right? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we talk about, we talk about 3 businesses that each make $1 million, right? One of them last year made 750. One of them the previous year made $1 million, and the other one made $2 million last year. Okay. Which one are you going to pay more for?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the one that was
Yeah.
the one that's growing, right?
One that's growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I also want to just, this could be fuel for your listeners too, is
Yeah.
try not to predict who's going to buy your business.
Mm.
That is a trap. Do not, that's another reason to talk to a broker so you could better understand what kinds of buyers
Mhm.
are out there and who's going to find you attractive, right?
Mhm.
Because you're building your business one way, but once you start thinking about selling, you're going to start to want to, let's say, shape your business in a different way, but do not fall into the trap of thinking you know who's going to buy you.
Mhm.
Trust a good broker. I thought somebody from Italy was going to buy my wood-fired oven business,
Mhm.
and it turned out to be someone from Sri Lanka.
Mm.
Like, I could have never have guessed in a million years who would be interested in
Yeah.
your business. And we see this day in and day out. So one of the biggest things is, do not try and build your business to attract a buyer. If you're thinking about building your business to attract a buyer, it's time for you to email Matt and I
Yes.
and jump on a call, and we can help you figure out, okay, these are actually realistic targets to buy my business, and these are the decisions I need to make it look attractive to those types of buyers.
That's
Big
awesome.
piece. That was a big
Yeah.
piece, Ryan.
No, that's awesome. How do talking about that, if folks do want to jump on a call with you, what's the best way to reach you guys?
Yeah.
Matt, your email is going to be easier than mine.
Yeah. Yeah. My email is mperkins. Yeah. I know that one's a tough one.
At Website Closers?
At websiteclosers.com.
Okay.
We also have our bios up on the Website Closers page. There's a bio for the brokers. You can find Joe and me there. Just go there, hit the P, and there's Perkins and there's Pergolesi.
Perfect. And Joe, yours would be jpergolesi at websiteclosers.com.
Correct. Yep.
Anything else I'm missing? I didn't ask that I should have. Anything that's that you want to share with folks that we didn't discuss?
Good question. Here's one little thing that I really like to tell a lot of entrepreneurs is there's three types of entrepreneurs out there. There's the artist / passionate pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
There's the ones that are really good at scaling and let's call it operational. And then there's the third kind who is good at both, and that they've metabolized the lessons from each of those stages. They're big picture thinkers. I could put it in simpler terms: left brain, right brain, and someone who can leverage both sides of their brain. So don't think that one or the other carries more weight or success opportunity. It's untrue. We've seen incredibly successful people who have been at the helm of and flexing their artistic passions, and they hire a good operational person. And then the good operational person, doesn't necessarily need to be the creative. They just need to be smart enough to find the creative person who's going to help, drive the business, be the reputation, or, come up with the creative ideas. So really important for entrepreneurs, I think, to know that, for one, they're not alone. And for two, they don't have to know everything. Nobody knows everything, especially when you're getting started. There's a lot to learn. Don't be shy asking for a business owner for advice.
That's good. Matt, anything you would add?
I mean, you've asked a lot of great questions. You really have. And Joe has given some really fantastic answers.
You have to?
Yeah. I do my best, right? So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Thank you very much for the time.
You guys too. This is my honor. So much fun. I a lot of the reason, I love talking with folks like yourself is because I have an interest in this personally. So I feel like, I don't even, of course I care if people listen to this, but for me, this is just so cool to get to talk to you guys because, I do one day want to, maybe I'd sell part of my business. I don't know. But would love to be buying businesses. So to build that relationship with guys that are brokers is, kind of a selfish thing for me. Like, yeah, cool, let's do this.
Well, who knows? Maybe
yeah.
one of these days you sell your podcast. Now,
Yeah, can you sell a podcast?
You don't think that doesn't happen?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. How would you sell a podcast when I'm the host? Like, how is that very sellable?
There's a long-term transition for that one, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you go through, there are multiple ways to do it, right? If you find additional talent, right? And so that you're not having to do the podcast every time.
Sure.
Or perhaps, so when people start seeing transition from Ryan to somebody else on every podcast, they might start to get suspicious, right?
Yeah.
But that's there's a long-term play there. I mean, that's obviously one where you definitely need to think in advance for the exit, because there's going to be a longer transition.
Yeah.
But or you could always sell to another podcaster, right? Somebody who is looking to pick up additional elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are umbrella podcast companies that have multiple podcasts sitting with them. So there's a market for it.
Interesting. Never even thought about that. Guys, don't worry. I have no intentions, those of you listening, to sell my podcast, but that's interesting. I didn't even know that was even possible. So,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. This is so fun. Feel free to email me back if you ever want to jump back on. You got some other news, or especially in the Amazon selling space. I know that changes so often. Like if there's ever any updates about or just related to Amazon selling and selling that brand or their account. Totally interested in that, and of course, happy to chat with you guys.
Great. Yeah, Amazon businesses, we sell a lot of them. A lot of them. So yeah, we would love to stay in touch. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Well, it's been fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.